these are the consequences of not winning games that Penn State fully expected James Franklin and company to win. But things can definitely happen and can go sideways with this. If you John Donovan, this kind of reminds me of the John Donovan move all the way back 2014, 2015. Was relieved pretty quickly because progress wasn't made, but the team was not as talented. I want to explain why Mike Yurcich was fired first, and I've already started to do this. Then we'll talk about if this was the right move, and then who are the possible candidates in this. And like I said, looking for your comments. So I already see, oh, who's Penn State going to hire? Who's going to be that next person? There's some leads. I'll throw out J1 Siders, probably the immediate replacement here, and we'll get confirmation on that, of course, very soon. And talk about it if and when it does happen with Ty Howell. If you're going to make it, and for the rest of the season, it would make sense for J1 Sider to take over because he was the co-offensive coordinator, the run game coordinator. Yes, he's the running backs coach, but you should look at his title. He has like 5 or 6 different titles to go along next to his name on gopsusports.com. So J1 Sider makes a lot of sense. And I've heard rumors about Sider looking for offensive coordinator jobs, but there hasn't been anything that's attractive. And some schools have looked at him as a head coaching option too. I think J1 Sider has been patient, but we discussed that in the final segment. I did want to throw that out there for anybody that's thinking, well, who's going to be calling plays the last 2 games? Probably J1 Sider, if I'm being honest. So I like this one to start it out. I'm just jumping from one Penn State channel to another one today. Thanks for making yesterday a little bit less painful. Today can be. I don't know how we should sum up today, Sunday, November 12th, because I don't like seeing anybody lose their job. But at some point, when you are not meeting your goals and expectations, you have to make a change. The definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again. Mike Yurcich was starting to fall into that category. The offense kept doing the same things over and over and over again. This scaredness, this timidness, Drew Allar. I don't want to put any blame on him because it starts with the coaching. So if your players are responding in this way, if Drew Allar is scared to throw the football deep, why? Please, someone explain to me how your 5-star quarterback who can airmail just about any football 80 to 90 yards effortlessly is somehow scared to throw it deep. That's got to start somewhere else. That can't just be on Drew. The players, especially in college football, they don't go rogue. They don't make their own decision. Quarterbacks will call their own plays in the NFL, right? They have, because they've been playing football for a longer time, and they're also paid to do that. But in the case of Drew Allar and college football players, they look towards the sideline. They do the check with me to get the calls from the sideline that come in. And who is making those calls? Mike Yurcich. So when you had the biggest expectations, right, there were little to no excuses for why Penn State's offense was as lackluster, even in the games where they won comfortably. Illinois, Northwestern, I would say even Maryland. It's not like Penn State's offense was marching up and down the field. Penn State's defense, I pointed this out a lot on the show, helped the offense start 27% of drives on the other side of the 50. That is best in the nation. 27% of offensive drives were starting in opponent's territory, best in college football, and Penn State was still having the struggles they were on offense. This is Mike Yurcich's bread and butter. Quarterbacks coach, quarterback guru. Drew Allar's the 5-star quarterback that everybody's been waiting for a long time, and he's been so underwhelming. A move like this doesn't happen without talking to people and having meetings. This wasn't spontaneous. I wonder if this was something that had been brewing for a few weeks. I think people were put on notice, maybe even before the Ohio State game, just maybe even before that. It's like, hey, we're not doing enough. 30 points against Illinois is something like, just you have to get more comfortable. And James Franklin said that after, if you listen closely to what he says, he doesn't directly go, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. But he'll say, well, we need to make some changes. And one of them that was pretty damning after the Michigan game was when he was asked about Drew Allar. And He didn't comment on Drew Allar's performance whatsoever. Specifically, what did the quarterback do right? What did he do wrong? Where can he improve? He didn't say anything about the sophomore. He went immediately after the play calling and said, yeah, I think we needed to do things where we allowed Drew Allar to get comfortable and confident. Well, who's calling plays? Who's responsible for Drew Allar's comfortability, his confidence? Yes, Drew Allar, would I like to see him be able to be a little more confident? But when your coach takes the football out of your hands for a majority of the game, your offensive coordinator, he had 10 carries. He's a pocket passer. Drew Allar's not a statue, but he's not a track star. And for some reason, that was your offensive game plan and the chance to save your season. So if Pat Kraft probably demanded a change. That's where this came from, and this was the only change that you could make. Who were you going to fire? Were you going to bench Drew Allar? I saw this was crazy to me, and people were contacting me about this across a fellow Locked On hosts were talking about this with me. Somebody put out a fake quote saying that James Franklin was just tore into Drew Allar and said that we need to reopen the quarterback position. We need to make a change. There are so many things that he did wrong, and it was a fake quote, and it went absolutely viral on X and Twitter. Thank you for people that don't trust actual reporters, and instead, Drew Allar he's a victim of poor coaching in this case. He is, and I don't like to see anybody fired. Mike Yurcich had a 13-game streak of 30-plus point games. Mike Yurcich had an underwhelming 2021 season, but you have to understand what you were working with. The offensive line wasn't as good. You didn't have Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, but this time you don't have that excuse. You were supposed to build off the 2022 season, right? You went from Sean Clifford to Drew Allar. You had a veteran. I think the wide receivers, because hindsight's 2020, right? Parker Washington, Mitchell Tinsley, and Brenton Strange are a better trio right now than Tyler Warren, Theo Johnson. Of course, we're going, I guess, 4 or 5 players here in this case. But Keandre Lambert-Smith, Theo Johnson, Tyler Warren, and Dante Cephas were supposed to be a better group of targets than Parker Washington, Mitchell Tinsley, Brenton Strange, and the younger versions of Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren. You get what I'm saying? Like, the passing options were either identical, or you could argue that 2023's team had better options just because of the experience that was coming along with it. And then another year of Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, the best offensive line that you've had in a decade. And the offense took a step backward with a 5-star quarterback who everybody's been hyping up. We are not doing this in the media because we are trying to carry water for James Franklin and this Penn State team. No, it's stuff that we've seen at practice. It's stuff that the coaches are telling us. And are they going to lie to us and say that, no, Drew Allar is actually really bad. He's not developing. But then you see it and it's like, how do we go from an opening touchdown of the season against West Virginia, where Drew Allar steps up in the pocket, throws a bomb across his body to Keandre Lambert-Smith. He spins out of a tackle and runs into the end zone. How do we go from that to Drew Allar quarterback draws on 3rd and 7 against Michigan? What happened? That's my question in all of this. What happened? Because it seemed like everything was going right. And it's not like players were getting banged up. Players were missing. Oh, Singleton and Allen haven't been 100%, or guys aren't available in the passing game. Of course, there is Trey Wallace, but tight ends are there. Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren, the offensive line with all the depth that it has, and all that depth is intact. So what's the constant here? And unfortunately, it had to be Mike Yurcich. So a lot of the fans called it out. They saw it, and that's not why Penn State made a change. Penn State didn't make a change because enough fans complained. But everybody saw the exact same thing. If the fans collectively start to point something out, it becomes obvious to a point. But that's not what Pat Kraft and James Franklin said. Well, the fans were pretty upset, and they booed a lot, so therefore we need to fire somebody. We need to call for somebody's job. That's not how this works. That's never how it's going to work. But in the biggest games of the year, Mike Yurcich did not call them well. He did not. I'm baffled here because I thought Mike Yurcich was a home run hire. in 2021. He led such prolific offenses, and maybe he's just suited better for the Big 12. Maybe the Big 10 conference is not for him. I don't know, because there is that understanding. Maybe coaches are just better suited for, because different kinds of football are played in different conferences. Of course, there's not a lot of defense in the former Big 12, right? When he was at Oklahoma State. But his offenses were ranked so well in the passing game. They were top 10. He was getting I can't even name the quarterback at Oklahoma State. And I'm probably doing a disservice to myself for not knowing his name, but with Brandon Weeden and Mason Rudolph, those guys come to mind for Oklahoma State. Mike Yurcich did not coach them, but he coached somebody else who didn't have a great football career and made him look like a very good college football quarterback. So now you have the 5-star, and where is the disconnect? Where's the disconnect in all of this? And that's why a change was made. That's why Penn State made a change, and it's happening now as opposed to later.